So, me and Joe went to a show tonight in Ottawa here, even though we felt extremely uncomfortable to go. Me especially, I'm like extremely introverted now. As the past 3 years, the bullying has gotten to a level where I'm scared to leave my house. I'm scared to go anywhere. Shows I don't attend anymore, even though I love music and I love being a part of like the music scenes and going to shows and enjoying music. I can't do that anymore, and tonight was an exact example of why. Um, so we went to the show. I was feeling anxiety on the way there, but I felt that I had no reason not to go. I didn't do anything. None of us did anything to not be able to go, so I figured we'd give it a try. I was a little nervous over who may be attending and who may try to intimidate me or actually even physically attack me. We went. Um, it was fine when we first got there. Uh, we watched the first band play just as they were about to begin. Me and Joe stood to the side where there's almost like a side room where it's separated from the first room where everybody was because I felt uncomfortable to be around everybody because I didn't trust the people in the room and I felt unsafe. But I still, that being said, I'm sick of being inside and I wanted to feel that I could go to a show and watch bands and listen to music without being hurt, or I just wanted to kind of have a sense of like I'm allowed to be here. I did nothing to not be allowed to be here. So I went, and standing there, I was too scared. I tried to be brave, and I stood behind a beam the whole time on the side so that people couldn't see me because I was too afraid of them actually physically attacking me or yelling at things at me to embarrass me or humiliate me or make me upset. Sure enough, within about 30 seconds of the band starting, Frank McDonald whipped a beer bottle at me and Joe. Joe was standing kind of in front of me, in front of the beam, so people could see him. I was behind the beam because I was too afraid of someone hurting me. And sure enough, Frank McDonald threw a beer bottle. It just missed Joe and smashed on the railing right in front of him, smashing the glass all over his feet and actually all over my legs. So indirectly, in him trying to injure Joe, he mostly just whipped glass at me. So that was the first incident that happened. Basically, when that happened, my anxiety went through the roof and I started to become really, really scared. I was shaking and I started to get really nervous. I told Joe I was scared to be there, but I wanted to stay because I didn't want anything to happen to him. And also, I still wanted to be there. I didn't feel like I deserved this. And I was hoping that maybe now that that happened and the promoter who actually invited me and Joe to go to the show, who is a friend of ours, her band was the one that was just about to play, and she said that she didn't want the drama and to stop the fighting. And the person, Frank McDonald, was asked to leave by the drummer Dan Lee, who swore at him and told him to get the fuck out because he threw the beer bottle, which started violence and scared the shit out of other people and was completely unnecessary, where nothing had happened to warrant that behavior. So after he was yelled at to leave, he walked out and they continued to play and went through the whole set. Everything was fine. I still stayed behind the beam because I felt like there was going to be something else happen for sure. So the band stopped and we went back into that side room and I sat down with a pack of cards and started showing Joe how to play solitaire. And so I was playing solitaire on the table. We were keeping to ourselves. There's really almost nobody else in that room. Um, After about 3 or 4 minutes of us being in there, a large group of about 12 people came in, rushed in together, came up at us around our table, circled us, and said, "It's time for you to go." And I was in complete shock to the point where I almost didn't even react at first. I just kind of sat there like completely confused. Joe sat there and said, "Why?" And they proceeded to tell him, "You're making people uncomfortable. You have to go." This 12 people were a few people I don't even know, I've never even seen before, but the people that were heading the group, I wrote them down in case I forgot. It's Matt, Will, Justin, Frank, Cody, Eric, Jennick, and a guy named Kaylee who I've never seen before. I just heard his name in passing. Um, Matt Hargrove pulled my seat away so I couldn't sit down because I was sitting, and I stood up because I felt unsafe because a group of men just circled me. Um, Basically, I was just standing there shaking the whole time. But when I saw Matt Hargrove take my seat, I felt compelled to let him know that I found that to be extremely violent and controlling, to feel he felt that it was necessary to rip my seat away as if I'm not allowed to sit. And he said, well, it's time to go. And I said, you have no right to tell me where I can and can't go, where I'm allowed to be and where I'm not allowed to be. You don't control me. And when I said that, he said, well, you're not allowed to be here because you make people uncomfortable. And I said, everyone's uncomfortable. I'm uncomfortable. I'm scared of being here. I'm uncomfortable with you people being here too. But you're welcome. You're supposed to be here just like I'm supposed to be here. We all want to be here, so we're here. Why is your feelings of uncomfortability more valid and more important than mine? And he replied with, well, there's more of us and we're all uncomfortable with you guys being here, so you have to go. And I said, numbers mean nothing. That doesn't matter. Why are your feelings more important than mine? And then he just said nothing and shrugged and said, it's time for you to go. They ripped our table away and took all the chairs away so we couldn't sit down. So we're basically just standing there in the middle of a room with 12 people in a circle around us. Frank McDonald continued to get violent. He had to have two people constantly pulling him back from physically jumping on Joe, even though Joe was standing there quietly discussing with Eric why he was not allowed to be there, and with them just continually repeating, well, you're making people uncomfortable, even though we were completely isolated in a room playing cards because we felt scared to be in the room with everybody. So I felt that we were being as accommodating to any signs of uncomfortability for them as possible by staying away from them and being docile, like playing cards. How could that be something that's scaring people? Plus, I was terrified to be in the room physically I felt someone was going to attack me at any moment. And Janik was in the room, which is a person who has violently reached out towards me many times and said extremely violent things about me and to my partner, calling me names and everything like that. So I definitely had more reason to be terrified in that room than any of those people who were in a large group, and it was just me and Joe against 12 people circling us and pulling our things away. Matt Hargrove, I would like to mention, also said to me, I had obligations to fill and I didn't fill them. When he said that, I said, what are you talking about? I'm obligated? What am I obligated to do? And why am I obligated to them? I don't even know what you're talking about. I have no obligations to anybody. I don't belong to anyone and no one owns me and no one can tell me what I can and cannot do, and I didn't do anything wrong. So why am I obligated to a group of strangers to do something that I don't even know what they're talking about? It made no sense. Basically, after about 10 minutes of Eric and Joe discussing what should happen now, Joe offered to exchange phone numbers so at least they could talk about this incident afterwards so they can come to some sort of conclusion or talk through some problems. Frank McDonald reached out and said, I tried to discuss things with you guys multiple times, to which I actually had to speak up and say, I'm sorry, what? You tried to contact us multiple times to discuss these issues? And he goes, and he's still staring at Joe while I was talking to him. And I said, can you please make eye contact with me while I'm speaking to you? I'm talking to you, Frank. And then he looked up at me, hesitatingly so, and I said, you multiply tried to contact us to talk through these issues? And he said, yeah, I did. And I said, no, you didn't, because we agreed to have a meeting to talk with him because of his roommate Jen once before, and we quietly, calmly, just like everybody else, sat around and we discussed them. And we came to a quiet conclusion. And Frank even actually, Joe asked for his phone number at that time, at that first meeting, so that they can continue to discuss their issues with each other to come to a conclusion peacefully on their own. And Frank gave him his phone number. Joe called multiple times and texted multiple times, to which Frank never once replied to any of these texts or calls, just always went to machine. So there's definitely been us trying to reach out with everyone blocking us off. So his comment of always trying to reach out just to talk and it doesn't work, so that's why he's fuming mad and trying to physically assault Joe. Don't know what he's talking about. if he'd like to fill me in on this, I would love that. I know Eric said he's going to get a hold of Joe and discuss all this, so that's great. We want communication and we want peace. I don't want to feel afraid to walk outside my door. I don't want to feel afraid to watch a band play music. I don't want to have a group of men stand around me in a circle and physically intimidate me. I don't feel safe at all here. I feel scared. I feel backed into a corner, and I feel like I'm being watched everywhere I go on the internet, in my actual life. I'm scared every day. And to know that I have friends around that don't say anything and don't do anything and continue to just let this happen and watch it and say, oh, that's too bad. Well, the bare minimum of what each of you can do to help this, prevent this, not only just to what's happening to me, but to other females around you, and God forbid to you if this happens to you one day. I'm being intimidated and being told what I must do by men, a group of men. And no one is saying anything to stop this. Yet today there was a bunch of women marching for women's rights because they feel oppressed and stuff. That's great. But I'm a person who's openly told my friends, my female friends, male friends, that I'm being intimidated and physically like abused and mentally abused, and actually physically they're trying to intimidate me. And I had my fingers pointed in my face, screaming, spit all over my face from man here. No one says anything. I have not once yelled back, not once physically touched anybody. I do not deserve what's happening to me. I'm a complete victim. And nobody has told these people that this is wrong, you need to stop. What happened at the show tonight? Everybody stayed in the showroom and watched from afar. The band watched, everybody watched as all this happened and did nothing. I saw a few sad faces like they felt bad, but to not say anything, to just let us walk out in between the crowd and everybody watching, it's disgusting that nobody felt the need to say this is not right.